That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
Yo, what's up? Thank you for tuning in today. Thanks to Humans for bringing us in. Thanks to you for supporting the show. I'm Shane Raymer. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, where we talk about drugs, alcohol, recovery, and more. And today we're going to be talking with my mentor, sponsor, and good friend, Buddy C, about sponsorship. We've had a lot of questions about how do I find a sponsor? Do I need a sponsor? All that good stuff. We got some other shit we're going to talk about as well. We've had some other questions. We actually had a lot of good comments and questions this week, so I appreciate all you guys sending those in. So before we get to that, be sure to check us out at thatsoberguy.com. You can also connect with us on Instagram at realthatsoberguy and on Twitter at Shane Raymer. Every year, 23 million Americans are living with addiction, but only 3 million are seeking the help that they need. So let me tell you about Heroes in Recovery. Heroes has a simple mission. It's to eliminate the social stigma that keeps people with addiction and mental health issues from seeking the help that they need. Now, they also share stories of recovery in order to encourage and inspire others and to help create an engaged, sober community that empowers people to get involved, which is very important, to give back, of course, and to live healthy, active lives. I've shared my story with Heroes in Recovery with Heidi a couple of years ago back in Nashville. We had a good time doing it. I think it's a great way to contribute and be a part of the recovery community. So do you have a story is the question. If you do, you can help bring it to truth and hope in the spotlight by sharing it with Heroes in Recovery. If you want to learn more, you can go to heroesinrecovery.com/soberguy. That's heroesinrecovery.com/soberguy. Or you can call 833-81-SOBER, 833-81-SOBER. Check out Heroes in Recovery when you get a minute. Live show. We just booked another live show. I wanted to announce real quick. It's June 23rd, still a couple months out. Tickets are $10. It's at the Hollywood Improv. It's a Sunday. We did it early. I think we have a 4:30 start time, of 4 o'clock doors. I really want to sell this thing out as fast as possible, if that is possible. So if you're in the Los Angeles area, come out, support us, support your own recovery, get involved, meet some new people, have some fun. Let's see, what else did I have? That's the 23rd. Oh yeah, the links for that. If you want to get tickets now, it's thatsoberguy.com/live shows, or you can go to the improv.com/Hollywood and you can click on the calendar link there and you can find them there too. I want to keep doing these things, I think, is the point. Why I was saying I want to sell this thing out. It's not because I'm making any money on it or anything like that. We basically pay the club, and I'm hoping to make enough to support my gas money to drive down from Northern California to LA. So it's really about getting people together, trying to change this thing, talk about recovery, have some fun at the same time. We're going to have some good guests. We're still working on that. So yeah, come support us. Come check it out. We had a great time in San Diego. I hope you guys all got to listen to the Innovations in Recovery podcast. Big thanks and a shout out to Carly, Sarah, Kaylee, Glenn, all the Foundations team, as well as all the great guests we had. So I hope you guys had some fun with that. And I want to give a shout out to Jordan Young from Jordan Young and Associates. He helped make some great connections while we were there too. One of the things I'm realizing in life in general, recovery, however you want to put it, it's not so much about what it is or putting a label on anything or business or whatever. It's really about creating relationships. And I've noticed that shit falls into place when we just put that first. And Jordan really did a great job at that. And I think he was a good example of that, and I appreciate it. So I think that is it on announcements. So stoked to have Buddy back on the show. He's been on a couple of times before. I want to say 117 was how to find a sponsor. So we've talked about this topic before, but it is such a hot topic that we figured we'd get on here and answer some questions. Buddy, it's good to have you back on the show, man. How's it going?
Good to be here, my friend. Always good when we can get together.
Absolutely, man. We've been continuing on our weekly meet on Thursday mornings. So today we said, what the hell, let's wrap it up and do a podcast. You're about to get on a ride. You got a rally coming up, right?
I do. We're doing I'm participating in the Rock and Ride scavenger hunt. It's a motorcycle scavenger hunt supporting Alzheimer's research. I'm leaving from Lake City, Florida, have to ride down today, leave in the morning. And then it's almost like it's a scavenger hunt where you get a list of bonuses and you put together a route based on all those things.
Yeah.
Whoever gets the most points wins. And it's fun. It's fun. A lot of good folks that participate.
And you get to go to the Ryman, you were saying, in Nashville, right? So you're gonna shoot me a picture of that.
I have to go through there. And if anyone's in the Southeast and they see a big black BMW whiz by with a crusty clown on the back, a crusty bobblehead, that's me.
You can yell, buddy. Yeah, that's right.
Wave, as I pass by,
So wait, so you put Krusty back on the bike? Because I thought that you said you took him off for a minute last time.
He makes me accountable because a lot of people have dash cams now, so they can identify me very easily if I don't behave in my driving.
That's good, man. That's good.
My ego does get hold to me sometimes in those, so I have to watch it and behave. And it helps me to behave.
Didn't you get hit by a deer one time too? A deer jumped out. I remember you called me like you were on some old dirt road and I don't know where the hell, out in the middle of nowhere, and a deer darted out and almost killed you.
It was Warland, Wyoming. Actually took an hour and a half for the deputy to get there. That was how far out in the country we were. But me and the deer. But it was a dirt road and I was going slow, but he ran out and hit me. I didn't never think about what he was running from. But.
I know, man. That's funny. His life could have been at jeopardy at the same time. Who knows?
I never thought about that. I was only thinking about me. I was thinking about, oh my God, my motorcycle's, totaled, and I was fine, but it was quite an experience. Quite an experience. That you're talking about sponsorship. Just us meeting today is an example of what you do with sponsorship. We meet every week.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a relationship that stales or gets old or is just for working the steps.
Yeah.
How long have we been 2 years now or 3?
Man, I think it's been a little over 3, I want to say.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that happens, and you build this relationship and I learn from you, you learn from me. I'm someone you can be accountable with, and there's times that I share things with you. So it's really a great relationship, no matter what kind of name you put on it, or even if it's not a within AA kind of thing,
Yeah. And I think one of the things is that we try to keep it simple and not have this really strict agenda. And at the same time, I say that lightly because I know we have work to do too. We actually need to dive back into the book. I know we've been talking about that lately. I had some other step study stuff with CR that I was doing at the time. But to that, it's an enjoyable thing. It's not something that I have to do. It's something that I want to do because I know the importance of it. And I think the one word you said was accountability too. And that's a huge thing, man. If I don't have accountability, dude, I am a mess. And that goes beyond just, having a sponsor or whatever it is. I need to be accountable. I'm not the best at holding myself accountable, which is probably how I got here in the first place, But yeah, we have a lot of good questions today that revolve around sponsorship, dry drunks. I had a couple messages about cherry pies, which I love that everybody loves the cherry pie story. It's so classic, like stuffing my fat face with cherry pies to self-destruct. So we're going to talk a little bit about sugar and other things to fill those voids. So before we get in, I think what we're going to do, buddy, we'll just dive right into some of these questions. But first, I wanted to mention, man, you had a couple exciting things that you just launched recently. One of them was the Tao of Our Understanding Alcohol Recovery Podcast. That's probably been like at least 6 months now, I want to say, or a few months. And then Transitions Daily. You guys listening, you may have heard me talk about Transitions Daily, the daily AA email that comes out. I use it every day. I get it emailed to me. And Buddy went out and decided to start a podcast and have people around the world read the daily AA email quotes. So I wanted to mention that. How are those things going? Where can people find them? All that good stuff.
They're doing well. As a matter of fact, I appreciate you discussing reading transitions while you're on the shitter. That's good.
That's my favorite spot to do it, man. First AM.
As long as you read it, as long as you read it.
Taking a dump, yeah. And Yeah,
that's enough. I'm sorry I mentioned it.
Oh, here we go. I'm going to go off on a rant about taking a shit. Well, here, but I real quick, I was talking to Seth last night, and he called me and he goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm taking a shit." And he goes, "Oh, perfect." He goes, "Do you ever lie to get away so you don't have to talk to anybody that you need to go take a dump?" And I said, "All the time. That's my safe space. I can go in there and not be bothered, man." And sometimes I read Transitions Daily.
Yeah, we started Transitions as a podcast back in February. I'm totally moving on.
I noticed that. Please do. Please do. My apologies.
In February, and we had people who wanted to read around the world, so we've pretty much segregated months at a time for people to read. So we have someone from Scotland, someone from England, a few from the U.S. in different places. So we've got some really varied accents around to read this. And so we've got a guy from Copenhagen that read last month, that read April. And so we've got a guy that's reading from Detroit that's reading May. And I think I've got Scotland in June. We wanted to make it an international kind of thing. We're getting a lot of downloads, about 200 a day on average, I think, 190 a day. So
that's awesome.
Good. And that's just in, a couple of months. So that's growing. On the Dow podcast, they can find that at any of their repositories where they find their podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher.
Got it.
Any of those. They go into search Transitions Daily.
And I'll put the notes, guys, in the show notes. So if you want to click on it there, you can find it there. How long is each podcast for Transitions Daily, roughly? 7
minutes. It's just the readings read. There's nothing else. There's no commentary. It's just what you would read in the email that you can get on the podcast now.
Got it. And so they're going to take some blocks, and I'm just, kind of mentioning this for those out there who've never seen it. You're going to take some blocks out of the big book, some quotes, some verses, some inspirational stuff, and it's condensed down into email format, which takes 5 to 10 minutes to read and maybe on average a 7-minute podcast.
Yeah. And it's the daily reflections as Bill sees it, just for today, 24 hours, all of those daily readers that are around for recovery. And we put all those into one email. So
got it.
That's how they're formatted, and they're the same every day as far as the format goes. We just took that format, took the email itself, and read it, is what happened for the podcast. Now, the Tao podcast is pretty interesting, too. I started studying the Tao Te Ching about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. And I was amazed at how it lined up with a higher power in recovery. So I'm still a Christian, but I've seen so much of how we learn in recovery about a God of our understanding and how that relates to a Taoist thought of God. It is so close, and it works so well, and it's so good for people who have a problem with organized religion or the God of how they thought God was. So it's really, really good for that. And so I started a meeting in Omar. It was the Share community. Now it's the Recovery Revolution community. And the meeting had such good content that I told, I said, let's just make it into a podcast. So started last June. I think it was October, November, when we made it into a podcast. So it's doing fantastic, and it's just great content every week. And anyone that wants to join in the podcast can join the recovery community, and they can be on the podcast. So
that's cool.
We do a Zoom meeting, and we got people all over the world that come to that. So it's really good. They can find that at any of their podcast directories too. It's TAO is how you spell Tao. It's a Tao of Our Understanding recovery podcast. So they can do Tao recovery and find it just fine. Should be able to. So it's really good content, and it's just fantastic. I love that. All these different ideas we have of God and all these different principles that I learned in AA are universal principles that work no matter what tags or labels that you put on them, including sponsorship.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point with God. Like, a lot of people can get wrapped up, I feel like, in putting a specific face or name or something on God when, and if that is an issue for anybody, kind of what you're saying is stepping back and just saying, well, there's something higher. I don't know what it is. I don't have to know exactly what it is, but I'm not it, number one. Number two, that I know for me, like, that's what helped me to finally stop drinking, was just to say, like, I don't got this anymore. Like, I can't do it. I'm not strong enough, all that kind of stuff. And the other thing I like too, is that you're getting people from all over the world together in a community base, and you're just having a conversation, and you guys are recording it. So really, really cool, man. And I'll be sure to put that link in the show notes here too, for those of you out there listening, if you just want to find it there, or like Buddy said, you can Google or go on iTunes or whatever, Tao of Our Understanding. And it's TAO. I always thought it was DOW, like a classic white guy would think. DOW, Tao. You know, it's not how it sounds. Not how it looks.
You know, I was listening to Richard Rohr, and he was talking about in Western thought with God, we've thought a lot in modern Christianity that our job with our relationship with God is to clean up our lives, clean up what we're doing, rather than wake up.
Mm.
So our real job is to wake up, not clean up. If we're waking up, the cleanup's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, if we focus on the cleanup part, we're never going to be good enough. We're always going to have this separateness. When if we're waking up, which if you read the steps, it says as a result of we have a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. So the whole goal is a spiritual awakening, no matter how you package it.
Yeah.
And if you're waking up spiritually, your life's going to clean up.
Yeah, I see. So you gotta, in order to deal with that cleanup mess, keeping my side of the street clean, going back, 4-step, forgiveness, all that stuff. First, we have to have a spiritual awakening and give up control, basically acceptance, all that.
You know, and that's the big part of what I like about this Taoist idea is it's the first 3 steps.
Yeah.
I can't do this. There is a power that's greater than me. And it's really more, rather than the power of my understanding, the God of my understanding is more the God of my misunderstanding. Because I misunderstand the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the great thing is I don't have to figure it out. All I have to do is stop trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I love the older I get, the less I know. Because, man, I had a big issue, and I still actually have this issue, but it's gotten a lot better, and I continue to have to work on it. But, trying to know everything and wanting to know everything and getting upset about things that I don't know or I can't figure out or it's frustrating me. And, man, it's so much easier just now to say, well, I don't know. And I can continue to study and try to, learn and all that kind of stuff too, but not beating myself up over it.
The freedom, Shane, is in realizing it's not up to you to know. It's not up to you to figure it out. What it's up to you to do is to let go and allow space for God to come in and do this thing for you. Because it's more really about getting out of the way than it is figuring out what to do. In my life, I found my problem was I was in the way. God was wanting to do all these things and move me in the right direction, but I was in the middle of the way all the time. And what I had to do was, once I learned to get out of the way some, and the way I do that is in a situation, well, for example, right now, my motive is to give you what you need in this podcast. It's not for me to look spiritual or some other agenda. I didn't, come and say, hey, let's talk about this and this and this and that. I said, what do you need?
Yeah.
Right. And I try to approach everything. I try to approach business that way. If I'm dealing with a customer or client some way, my first thought, if I'm spiritually minded, is what do they need?
Service.
Help them. Yes. Let me help them with what they need. How can I give them what they need? Then I get what I need.
Sure.
I don't even know what I need. I know what I want. And a lot of times what I want is not what I need.
Yeah.
So it's that simple. It's that simplicity. I remember one of the first times we talked, you may not remember this. You were all up in yourself about something. I forget what it was.
Yeah.
I said, hey, man, you're not all that. And you just stopped. And I said, okay, this is either he's going to accept that and we're going to move forward, or he's going to hang up on.
That's funny, man. I needed to hear that right then,
Yeah. And you said, you're right.
Wait a minute. I'm not that important? Holy shit.
The funny thing, when we can move from director to just doing our part, like a play. Think about a play. We all have this part to play. When you're playing a part, when someone tells you something that's their part to play, you don't get angry about what they tell you. You don't take it personally. You're playing a part.
Yeah.
Right? You don't try to rewrite their words, their part, to say something different. That's not your job. It's your job to play your part and your part only.
Yeah.
And you're not controlling it. You're playing the part you're given. So it's the same thing with this. We can't be the director. If we're being the director and directing the play and rewriting everyone's parts, it's going to be disastrous.
So I want to point something out here too. We've just had a quick, 5-7 minute chat here about recovery and about a little bit of step work, all that kind of stuff, right? How many times did we mention alcohol there? And I think this is a really good point that you point out often when we chat is the only time in the steps, at least, where it mentions alcohol is in the first step. And so the more that I dive into this and continue on in my own little journey, and I think I feel like I talked about this a bit at the conference last week too, is that it's so much less about me, the drugs, the alcohol, the past stupid shit that I did, and the tools, which was drugs and alcohol, that I used to cope and to deal and to, live my life that way and even have fun at the same time too. I had a lot of fun times partying, you know what I mean? Of course. But it's really about learning how to practice all this stuff in my everyday life. And that, I think, for me has been one of the biggest challenges, definitely. And at the same time, one of the most beautiful things too, is to be able to separate that and go, yeah, I got an issue with alcohol, with drugs. Yeah. But number one, I'm not going to be so hard on myself like that and say, that's all my issue. I'm only like this because of that. Well, really, no. Once I start diving in and doing some work behind it and learning about who I am, it's really helped to spring me forward in my own journey.
Our job, again, is to wake up, not clean up. Okay, so if I'm waking up, I'm working the steps, I'm identifying my character defects, I'm going through learning how to surrender those things, learning what's behind them. I was angry all the time. I was angry at myself. I would look in the rearview mirror as I rode down the road and point my finger at me and say, I hate you.
Damn.
I hate you. Because I couldn't stop drinking. My life was all screwed. Everything, I was a wreck. And I hated myself. After I'd been sober about 6 months, I realized I wasn't doing that anymore. I didn't try to stop. I just didn't need to do that. That anger was gone. So if I I think there was an old comedian, actually, it was a Christian comedian years ago. He said that if you spend your time doing the do's, you won't have time to do the don'ts.
It's good.
And we know that alcohol is a symptom. It's not the problem.
Yeah.
Our problem is lack of connectivity to our higher power. That's our problem. So when we get that connection back, we get rid of that selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear enough that we get that connection. Then we work on the connections around us, the horizontal connections with other people through 8 and 9. Then we maintain that and continue every day. The question to ask is not how can I clean up? It's what can I do today to wake up spiritually more? What am I doing today, first of all, to wake up spiritually? And then what can I add to that? What's feeding me, and how can I do more of that? Because my success, my peace and joy that I'm looking for is in waking up and living a spiritual life, not all these other things that we thought it was. Just like we thought alcohol was our problem, we think things are going to make us happy.
Yeah.
Things are not our problem. Things are not going to make us happy either.
I think that's why we see so many people, and you would think that have all the money, all the stuff, I guess, whatever pick a thing, stuff could be anything, but they have it. And at the same time, they could still be very unhappy. And I think that's a good example of if we're not in that state, stuff is just stuff. We don't come into the world with it, and we sure as shit don't leave with it. So that love, man, that's what I'm trying to roll with. But it's difficult.
He who dies with the most toys dies. He doesn't win. He dies.
Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah, and all those things create separateness. We're all connected. We're all part of this big body. So when I hurt someone, I'm hurting me. It's just like if you took your right hand and you said, I'm going to hurt my left hand. Well, you couldn't cut your left hand with your right hand without hurting yourself. You're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
It sounds so strange to even say that. That's crazy that someone would think that. But when we hurt other people, we're doing the same thing, because that's a mirror. That's why with forgiveness, what does the Lord's Prayer say? It says that we're forgiven as we forgive others. So it's about the way we forgive other people, and we see that in our life. So it's all about this. And any time that we're separate, like talking about pride or ego or things, then we're separating ourselves from everyone else. We're better than, or we do the same thing if we say we're less than. Yeah. We're separating, So, and the way that we get that connectivity is by thinking of them other than us. How can we inject love into this situation? How can we be part of the solution instead of the problem? All those different ways we say it.
But it all comes back to service in the end.
It really does. It all comes back to me being concerned about you.
Yeah. Whereas before I could give two shits about, I'm all about me.
That's it.
What do I want? What do I need? You've did this to me. You know what I'm like, man, that attitude is so toxic. Personal. Yeah. Everything's, that's a really good way to put it, actually. Yeah. Everything's personal. So no matter what happens, what somebody does, and then what's birthed out of that victim mentality, that victim attitude. Now I walk around with that victimhood.
More separate.
Man.
More separate.
Man, I got some bad congestion. Yeah, man, it's been rolling this morning really, really bad. Please excuse me, man. Some green stuff coming up there.
I know that there is a mute button, Shane. You know that. Right?
I know. Well, I guess now that you say that, I know. I didn't think about it. I remember one podcast. I don't remember what it was, but someone had sent me a message on it. I had just hawked one up and just spit it right on the floor here, right in the middle of the show. I don't know. Let's get to some of these questions, man.
Let's do that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think that's a good moment to transition here. So a couple of these first come from a couple of the homies, and they're just comments. I wanted to give them a little shout out here. The first one comes from Zach, and it's z.snav, SNAV on Instagram. If you want to give him a follow, he's got a badass Instagram account. And Zach actually is out in the Middle East, and he's working like a badass, man, shooting bows, just doing some really, really cool stuff. And he's a good dude, follows the show for a while, so I appreciate the support from him. Just want to give him a little love. He just said, I'm behind a few episodes, love the podcast, and looking forward to finding a sponsor answered. So with that, I want to say, I don't know, and we talked a little bit about this in the beginning, buddy. We definitely don't have all the answers, but we want to give our opinions and personal experience, and hopefully through that, someone might hear something that helps them. So that's really the goal. And Zach, I appreciate it, man. The other one comes from Chris at Holistic Sobriety. Been on the podcast a few episodes ago. I can't remember which one, 250 something maybe. He's got the holistic sobriety program, which is amazing. So check that out. He said, big up, Shane. You got that PMA, positive mental attitude. I love hearing that. So thank you for the support, man. Trying to keep that attitude rolling. And I think me and Chris, we had some requests to do a podcast strictly about sugar. And I think we're going to hopefully try to talk a little bit about that today, but just really focus and dial in on the sugar aspect, because I know for me, that's been a huge struggle coming in and trying to stay sober about what I'm putting into my body with regard to sugar and sweets. And I know it's an issue for a lot of people. So look for that, hopefully coming soon, and me and Chris will get that set up. The first question we have here comes from Bryce. And Bryce says, hey, Shane, big fan of the podcast. Went through 19 months of sobriety before relapsing and going back out for 5. On my first attempt, I white-knuckled it. I went to a weekly meeting and listened to the podcast. This time around, I want to do it right and get a sponsor and work the steps, which is great. I've been having some trouble reaching out to someone from my area to sponsor me. I know you mentioned a couple times you went through a non-traditional route in finding a sponsor. Wondering if you could point me in the right direction. Any advice is appreciated. And then this last night I thought was funny. Keep it up, love your work, keep your blood clean, especially from those cherry pies. And I don't think I've eaten a cherry pie in a while, which is great. So appreciate that. But so we get this question a lot. How do I find a sponsor? Do I need to do it the traditional way? I think is what Bryce said. Where do we start with that, buddy? I mean, you and I have a unique relationship, kind of how we found each other, or how you found me, or I found you. I'm not quite sure exactly how that happened again. But you have a lot of sponsees. You have a sponsor yourself. I mean, what's your take on it?
Well, first of all, you mentioned about me having a sponsor. I would not have a sponsor who did not have a sponsor himself. Mm. So it's important that you always have, in my thinking, you always have no matter what tag, let's just say now that I'm going to say sponsor, but it could be an accountability partner. It could be someone who is your mentor, and someone who goes before you is, in my opinion, is better, that's been there already, because their job, in my thinking, is to share their experience, to really never give advice. Always share their experience on how they did it. That's how my sponsor does with me. I mean, he's a retired consultant. He knows he knows a lot. He thinks he knows a lot more than he really does, but he thinks he knows everything. But when it comes to recovery, he never does that. He says, well, this is what I did. And if it's something he doesn't know about, he'll say, my sponsor has some experience with that. Let me talk to him about that and see what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a real intelligent guy that could spout out advice about all kinds of things. But he does not do that for that simple reason that that's not his job in recovery to give me advice.
Yeah.
It's just to tell me how he did it. And if he tells me how he did it, then I can gather from that whether that's something that I'm going to, do or not, or how I should respond.
So I think that's a great point, and I've never really realized or thought of it like this as far as a tip would go. So I think it's fair to say, and just you saying that, if you're actively seeking a sponsor, as you start to work with somebody, or when you're kind of feeling it out, look for somebody who's going to share their experience and not tell you what to do. Nobody fucking wants to be told what to do. Excuse my F word. I always say I'm trying to stop saying the F word, but then I continue to say it. So I'm just going to stop saying I'm trying to stop saying it, because it falls out sometimes. But I don't want to be told what to do. You don't want to be told what to do. Like, most of the time when people try to tell me what to do, I'm going to do the exact opposite, because I'm, a hard-headed guy like that. So I think that's a great place to start.
People say that you're attracted to a sponsor that has what you want. I would definitely be someone who had the sobriety I wanted, not necessarily someone that was exactly like me. Mm. But if they have peace and joy, they're handling life in a way that you want to handle life, then that would be a person that you might consider. Another way to look at that, if you see someone you don't quite know, you hear them talk in a meeting and you don't know whether it's someone you'd want for a sponsor. I would definitely have a sponsor who had the same addictions that I had. So I wouldn't get a meth head for a guy that was recovered from meth as a sponsor for me. I'd get an alcoholic. If he wasn't an alcoholic, he wouldn't have the same experience that I need. So that's one thing for sure. That's what I look for if I'm looking for a sponsor. The other thing too, we come into recovery. For me, I came into AA. It took 6 years, but I finally learned how to surrender enough to where I could start staying sober. So after that, I want to turn around and look for a sponsor and take that back and do it mentally and in my own power when I'm stopping to drink outside of my own power through a surrender. So really looking for a sponsor could be one of my first times of surrendering something other than my alcohol.
I see.
Because, step 12 tells us that we learn to practice this in all of our affairs. So one of the first things we could do this in is finding the sponsor relationship that we need. So I would just surrender it. I'd say, okay, I surrender my need for a sponsor. God, I don't know. I'm powerless over finding the right sponsor. I have no idea what I need. And I just surrender it, and I'm just going to keep my eyes open. I'm going to go to me. I'm going to look around the places I look for recovery and see who I see that could be my sponsor and just be open.
What about this too? It doesn't have to be perfect right off of the bat. Maybe that's not going to be, the first person you pick is going to be your long-term sponsor. The point to it is to get somebody who can be hold you accountable as you start to work the steps, as you start to work a program, as you start to get dialed in. So, I just want to say I had a couple of sponsors before Buddy and I started working together. They didn't work out, and it was it was to my own doing. I wasn't ready at that time, but at least I was trying to have somebody there. So I think that's a good point too. It doesn't have to be perfect right off the bat, but as long as you're doing it, that's what matters, and you're surrendering to it.
And one great way to do that is ask someone to be your temporary sponsor. And then if someone asks me to sponsor them and I don't know for sure, I'll say, well, I'll be your temporary sponsor until we see if this is a good fit. And if it's a good fit, then we can move forward, whatever we need to do. Or if you find someone you feel is a better fit, just let me know,
Yeah.
Just go that route. And sponsorship is never a permanent thing either. It's always okay to change sponsors. And people outgrow sponsors and relationships change. And, my sponsor's sponsor just passed away. That's the second one he is buried.
Wow.
Yeah. So, these things happen. I've had 3 sponsors. I'm on my 3rd sponsor in 16 years. And one moved, so I got a different one. Then I kind of outgrew my second one. He was kind of stagnant and he didn't really work the steps with me. It was kind of an odd thing. And I moved on to the sponsor I have now. So those relationships change, and I needed those guys at those times.
I want to jump back into about the title or the label. I know, and even for me, I struggled with this definitely at first a bit with putting a label on it. You already kind of mentioned that. It doesn't have to be a sponsor. You could say mentor, accountability partner, whatever it is. You don't have to put a label on something. It's more about doing the act of the accountability, right?
I think there's a couple of elements to sponsorship. One is accountability. 2 is someone who has what you want. And I think 3 would be someone who's further along in whatever program it is that you're working. So let's say you were doing AA. Well, or Celebrate Recovery has steps too. The saying is, if they're one step ahead of you, then they could be your sponsor.
Got it.
So as long as they're ahead in the program and they have what you want, those are things that I would look for in a sponsor if I was looking for one.
That was one. So the second guy that I had as a sponsor, it wasn't very long. We were working the steps one day, and I think I had, I don't know, maybe a year and a half at the time or something. And I found out he only had 5 months sober. And I didn't know at first. I thought he'd been in the program for a couple of years. And so, you know, and I think if I'm all honest here, I kind of used that as an excuse to bail out, because I just didn't really want to have a sponsor at that time, even though I knew I should. But in my defense, that was something that I was like, whoa, that's kind of weird. Like, I got a year and a half, but this guy's only got 5 months. I felt like I needed somebody definitely who had a little bit more time than I did, and experience.
You know, the important thing that I look at is, do they have something that I want that I don't have? And sometimes the person with 5 months may have that. So as you get more time in sobriety, you're not going to always have a sponsor that has more. Ideally, you would want that, you know, but that's not always the case. I'm sponsoring a guy right now that has 28 years, and I've got 10. You know, I started AA 6 years prior to that, so I've got 10 years now, and he's got 28 or 29. And he asked me to sponsor him because there were some things he wanted that I had. So, you know, he was having some difficulty living the program.
Yeah.
So that happens. You know, it's just being open to that. But it's all about this waking up, though, Shane. The whole question is, how do I surrender this, including the other parts of life? And surrendering that sponsor-sponsee relationship is a huge part. As a matter of fact, would you mind just sharing how we got together? Because that's a great example of that.
Yeah. No, it is. It's a really good example, and it just happened, man. And that's why earlier I said I can't even put a finger on it, because I don't think there was it wasn't mapped out. It was, I think you sent me an email. I think you said you had heard a podcast I did. This was probably maybe 2 years in, roughly 2 years in for me, for my recovery, and about a year and a half of the podcast. You had heard a show that I did, and you could tell in my voice that I was struggling. And so I think you'd shot me over an email. I had known a little bit that you had worked with O, or at least you had been on O's podcast, to share podcast at the time. And so, I mean, you shot me an email. We just kind of started chatting. It was never a thing of like, I'm trying to be your sponsor on your end, or me, I need you to be my sponsor. It was never anything like that. We just started building a friendship, a relationship, and working together, you know, in recovery, and talking, man. And that's really how it came about. Very organic and very real.
Organic is the word I would put on it. And I think that's the way it's always supposed to work.
Yeah.
I emailed you. I just heard something, and I just knew I needed to email you about it. You know, it was and you were just I could just tell you were just overwhelmed with what was going on, you know. So I just emailed you, and then you responded, and we got to talking.
Yeah.
And it just evolved from there. Nothing that was contrived, no agenda, you know, all purely, how can I help Shane? I think I need to contact him. You know,
yeah, it's crazy, man.
You know, but that's how it's always supposed to work.
Well, so with that, buddy, comes a lot, I think, of laying down expectations too, right? No matter what it is. So when we're setting these expectations about things, and then more than half the time, I know for me, they never work out like I expected them to. My visions are usually a lot more grandiose than what, you know, it ends up being. So I'm setting myself up for disaster versus not setting those expectations. And I'm talking about whatever situation it is. It could be anything. And just going into it with the act of simplicity, and I'm here to do this, and that's it, whether it's service or whatever it is. That's been a really great way for me to kind of approach every day. And I don't do it perfect by any means all the time at all, 100%. You know, but when I do it, I'm able to recognize it and go, man, that's it right there. That's how I need to continue to strive for, you know?
That effortless effort.
Yeah, effortless effort. Yeah, that's good.
It's effort, but it's in an easy, non-contrived, non-forced way.
Yeah.
That's what I really think this whole walk is about, is learning how to walk in that. And that's the waking up.
Yeah.
That's the waking up to the fact that, my life is enriched by enriching yours, not by getting more.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems right.
That's it. And it's so simple. But, so you have some questions that we did.
Yeah. I still have quite a few. So let's move on. Let me give a quick recap here for Bryce and for all those out there listening on sponsorship. There was kind of 4 takeaways here, and buddy, feel free to add any more if I missed one. But so when finding a sponsor, a couple points here: look for someone who shares their experience, not gives advice. Number 1. Number 2, accountability, and these aren't in any particular order, by the way. Accountability. That's huge. Look for somebody who has what you want, something that you see that they're doing, the way they're living, whatever it is that you want. And then this one we kind of talked a little bit about. It could go either way, but most of the time, someone who's further along than you are, whether that's in time or experience, step work, whatever it is. That's always helpful too. So I think those were 4 of the points I got. Was there anything else that you thought of?
We're getting a trend here of people sponsoring each other. Like 2 people sponsoring each other.
Really? I've never heard of that.
Well, I don't think that would work for me.
Yeah.
Because part of a sponsorship relationship is the respect to a sponsor, that if they ask you to do something or suggest you do something, you do it. It's an accountability kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, for example, with you, I said, well, I have to go to a meeting every week, Shane, to stay sober. And you said, well, I'm blah, blah, blah. You were busy. I said, okay, we'll talk about it next week. Next week, hey, what meetings are you making? Well, I'm doing I'm doing this, and I really felt strongly that, I have to go to meetings to stay sober. So I would think Shane would need a meeting to stay sober too.
Yeah.
And so that's as close as I get to advice. And you started actually, someone that had a problem with alcohol came to you and you ended up at a meeting to help them.
That's right.
Then you got in your CR and some other, but you started going to meetings. If you would have said, oh, well, screw that, I don't need to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
And never went to another meeting, our relationship would have dwindled away.
And then you found out that I had about 18 meetings within a 50-foot radius of my house at 3 different churches. You made the mistake of telling me that. Now I had no excuse, damn it. Hey, so if you don't mind, I think that's a really good point about respecting your mentor, your sponsor, whatever you prefer to call it, but having that respect, and then on your end, being able to suggest, share your experience, and organically be patient, but at the same time have these somewhat expectations, I guess. Parameters, yeah, in order to continue to progress. But tell the beard story real quick. I love that story.
Oh, I've got 2 good ones I'll tell you.
Okay, yeah, let's tell them out there.
Beard story. I had a friend of mine who asked a guy to be, and this was an old-time sponsor. He was a kind of an old mainline kind of AA guy. And the guy had a beard that was the sponsee. He was asked this guy to be a sponsor. He said, well, go shave your beard. He said, what? He said, why do I need to shave my beard for you to be my sponsor? He said, well, if you want me to be your sponsor, go shave your beard. So he said, okay. So he shaved his beard and came back to a meeting later that week. He said, okay, I shaved. He says, okay, you can grow it back. Said, what? He said, I did that because I wanted to know if you would follow directions or not.
Huh.
You'll do what I ask you to do. Okay. Well, then you can. Oh, and the same guy. It's the same guy. Kept doing business with his brother. This was years later. kept doing business with his brother.
This is one of my favorite stories ever right here.
And he said, and the sponsor said, I would quit doing business with my brother because he kept screwing you. He says, I just stopped doing business with him. But he kept doing business and kept complaining, kept doing it, kept complaining. One day his sponsor told him, he said, do you have a gun? and the sponsor, he said, yeah, do you think I should kill myself? And he says, no, shoot me. I'm tired of hearing this.
Over and over, huh?
So he quit mentioning it to his sponsor, but
he wasn't taking it. He wasn't taking he
wasn't taking his advice.
Yeah,
or his suggestion, I guess.
Yeah.
Ever how you want to tag it, Yeah. Another part of that too is no sponsor is perfect, and you have to have enough respect for a sponsor that it's okay for you when they do things in what you think is an imperfect way. Every sponsor I have has done things that I thought were wrong. Not like major things, but little things that I thought if that was my sponsee, I would be mentioning those things that I was seeing. I mean, even though there were little things, it's things that, you would mention, say, hey, why are you doing that? If it were me, that's not something that would be part of my recovery walk,
Yeah.
It was just maybe ways they were handling things or different, just stuff, life in general. And you've got to realize that your sponsor is going to make mistakes and your sponsor is never going to do this thing perfect. And a lot of times a sponsor will do things in a different way than you think is appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
And you have to have enough respect for the sponsor that you don't go in and try to correct the sponsor. And I have that respect for my sponsor. He's done things I thought were not the way to handle it, but it's none of my business. I'm not his sponsor.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
So you have to have that kind of, there's a little bit of separation there,
Sure.
But no one's going to, and that's one of the first things I tell guys when I go to sponsor them is, hey, I am going to make mistakes. I am going to be imperfect. I'm going to do things that you think are wrong. You're going to have to accept that.
Without telling me that I'm doing it wrong.
It's really none of their business because they're not my sponsor.
Yeah. That's funny, man. I love it.
Really, that's the kind of lines you have to.
Yeah. That's those parameters. That's those kind of parameters that we're talking about. It's kind of a basic outline.
Now,
etiquette.
If my sponsor went and drank or did something like really extreme, we're talking about little things.
Yeah.
Little things. Now, another point is normally you have, if you're a man, you get a male sponsor. If you were gay, you would get a straight sponsor. I have a gay sponsee. Moved now, and I don't see him too often. But he said he had to have a straight sponsor because he'd always end up in bed with a gay sponsor.
Oh, shit. Really?
Yeah. So it'd be like, us having a woman sponsor or us sponsoring a woman, that kind of thing. So
you kind of want to eliminate even the most minute chance of any sexual attraction or relationship attraction, anything like that.
You have to, because you get so close. You learn things about the person that no one else knows a lot of times. You know secrets that no one, even their spouses, don't know.
Yeah.
So with that kind of intimacy, you don't need to muddy the water with any kind of sexual issues.
Sure.
Because it'd be so easy to cross that line if you were already so close in ways that you're not close with anyone else.
Yeah. All right, let's. I'm just looking at time here, and I'm like, holy shit! We're already an hour in, and I still got. I know that went.
Let's ball it through. Let's just.
Well, I wanted to. I wanted to spend some time on that anyway, so that kind of was the plan here. But I also wanted to spend some time a little bit on dry drunks, and we're going to get to that in just a second. This next question comes from my homeboy Ryan, and Ryan and I have known each other since. For a long, long time. And just want to encourage him to keep plugging away and keep going, man. But he says, when do you find a sponsor? And do you need to have at least 30 days sober to have a sponsor?
No, I think you need a sponsor as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So there's no
that accountability immediately.
Mm-hmm. You could get on the first day, right? You could get a sponsor your first day if you wanted to.
Even if you're in and out. I was in and out for 6 years and had a sponsor that entire time. I think I was about a month in before I found a sponsor. And then the same guy stayed with me up until my first year of sobriety. And that took a full 7 years. So he was my sponsor for those he moved just when I was getting my 1 year chip.
Yeah.
So he was with me for 7 years and he stayed with me the whole time. And different sponsors do things differently. Like I know sponsors, if they're sponsee drinks, they'll fire them and say, I won't be your sponsor if you're drinking.
Yeah.
This guy, he would meet with me and say, okay, now that he wouldn't talk to me. I wouldn't call him if I was drinking, but I would drink for a week or a couple of days or, and then come back. I did that continually for 6 years. I just could not drink when the cravings got so much. I didn't know how to surrender.
Yeah.
And so we even worked through the steps in those 6 years. We did all these things, but I had not fully surrendered. So that was in hindsight. That's what I was missing. But he worked with me the whole time. He'd meet me for breakfast, say, okay, what are we going to do different now? That kind of thing. So it's important as quickly as possible that you meet up with someone who can start helping you navigate sobriety.
Cool. First day, number one, get after it. The next message comes from Dante. Dante said, yo, just want to thank you for sharing your struggles with cherry pies. I'm almost a year into recovery and I have a major problem with ice cream and sweets at night when the defenses are down. Lots of justification here. I'm not partying, so I deserve this shit, but I feel shitty after the binge session. Man, I can't tell you how many times I've been there with rolled tacos and cupcakes and cherry pies. Man, it's like this form for me of self-destruction. So I totally feel you there. I know a lot of other folks have the same problem. Cool to hear your take on it. Thanks. Grateful for your stuff. So, buddy, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Have you struggled with that a bit? Do you have anybody that you've worked with who struggled with it?
I have, and I do struggle with that. I've read a lot. I'm diabetic too, so it's never good for me to eat any kind of sweets. I have to manage my insulin and my sugar levels, so it's not good. But I found that I keep boiled eggs in the refrigerator, and when I have a craving, I'll pop an egg. And if I can wait a few minutes, a lot of times that will take care of the craving. I'm sorry.
Can I put chocolate on the egg?
No.
I might need some chocolate or like something sweet. Also
cottage cheese and fresh fruit. I'll eat that. Or I even keep whey protein like you do with whey protein shakes. And I'll take a little cup of the protein and just eat the protein. If
just
it's
straight.
Really bothering me, just straight protein, just straight whey protein. That's better than me gorging on chocolate.
Yeah.
Then I tell my wife, I said, I'm going to eat all evening. Let's go have sex so I can go to sleep. That gets me a little more sex sometimes too.
Oh man, that's funny, man. I've been trying peanut butter, like natural peanut butter. That one helps.
I'll eat the whole jar.
See, and that's the thing, the limits of stuff. So it's not so much what we're eating too. Well, to some extent it is, but it's more about how much we're eating. So too much of anything is going to be bad, whether it's peanut butter.
When I buy the ice cream, I throw the lid away because I'm going to eat the whole thing.
Immediately, trash. I'm slamming this gallon right now.
I only buy a quart at a time is all I buy. Yeah. And so that whole thing is, I've learned just to avoid it and try to, not right now. Use the same. And the thing is, it's not life-threatening. So it's more difficult for me to surrender to the point alcohol was killing me and making me miserable. So sugar does to an extent, but I'm learning how to surrender that.
I can say for me, one thing that has been helping a lot is not being so hard on myself about it. And in addition to that, I've been getting some really, really intense, badass workouts in the last month, in a little over a month now. And so for me to go, and I've been going 4 days a week. So for me to go get my ass kicked at a workout and then come home and eat like shit, I won't do it because I just literally got my ass kicked. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to go mess that up. That's been helping out quite a bit more than it has in the past, along with just being conscious of what I mean. Like last night, the kids and I, Jess was working. We went and got some dinner, and afterwards they wanted to go get some froyo. Dad, we want to get froyo and get all the sprinkles and frozen yogurt, right? So we go to this little shop. And I got a little bit of frozen yogurt, man. I put some little cheesecake stuff in there. I didn't get a whole bunch of it. I got a little bit. And I was cool with that. You know what I mean? And I
no
felt
cookie
like
dough?
no
You
cookie
didn't put
dough.
any cookie dough on it?
No cookie dough. I think
what I do is I put a layer of cookie dough on the bottom before I put it in it. Then I put cookie dough on top. Then I cover it and top it.
That sounds delicious. Oh, man, that's good stuff. But, yeah. I mean, as you can tell, we don't have the answers for this kind of stuff. Like, I think that's a good thing too. Like, this is an ongoing struggle for me. Like a lot of people out there. It sounds, buddy, like it is for you too.
It is.
We just got to keep at it.
It's all surrender.
It's good.
All these areas of life, it's not about us knowing. It's about us accepting that we don't know.
Yeah.
Leaving room for the answer to show itself.
Yeah.
In everything. The sponsorship business, everything. It's the same answer. We're one solution people. Used to, alcohol was my solution for everything. Now this surrender to a higher power is my solution.
Got it.
I don't know what to do. Okay, well, let me surrender this. Let me let go of this. And the right answer will show itself if I surrender and stay out of the way.
Yeah. We had another comment from on Instagram from a guy named Grant. And I wanted to mention here too, he was just kind of giving a little feedback, but one of the points he made was he could totally relate to relationship with sugar and junk food. He says it's a new realization, and he started putting effort into step work on this topic, and it's helping. So I think that's kind of a good point to what you're saying. Surrender, a lot of the same principles as if it were alcohol. We're applying that same thing to sweets, to whatever the addiction is.
Work the steps on it. I know someone in OA that I'll pray for when I want to overeat like that. If I want to have my sugar, I'll actually stop and pray for that person.
Yeah.
That's a way I can give to that person, just like I would for helping and encouraging an alcoholic. Because they said nothing works like work with another drunk when you want to drink.
Yeah. God, please help me not eating this whole cake right now. Please.
Well, but this is the thing, though. That prayer, I don't want to say that prayer won't work, but you're not bringing anyone else into it.
Because it's about me.
It's about you.
It's about me. Yeah, exactly.
It's only helping you. How can you help someone else in that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the magic.
Let's move on and talk about dry drunks real quick. So this comes from Jacqueline, and then also another guy, Mike, also asked about this. So we had a couple of questions regarding relationships, dealing with somebody who's a dry drunk, and you want them to change, get help, whatever. What are your thoughts? Well, I guess first, what is a dry drunk, buddy, in your opinion?
In my opinion, a dry drunk would be someone who has just taken alcohol out of their life and is not working any type of program at all. So they're just miserable because they can't drink. They don't have any kind of relief from their selfishness, their dishonesty, their resentment, their fear. They're angry probably. They're just miserable all in themselves. It's all about them. They haven't learned any of the principles that we learn in recovery about how to wake up.
Yeah.
They're trying to clean up, not wake up. Back
there
to
it
that.
is. See how those little nuggets get dropped organically. I love that. Yeah, trying to wake up or trying to clean up and not wake up.
Yeah, they're just cleaning up. and they can't do it. It's impossible, in my opinion. For me, it was to clean up without a spiritual awakening, because that's what I was after anyway.
Well, that also goes back to the front of our conversation too, about how less it is about alcohol and how more this thing is about practicing these principles in all of our affairs and everything that we're doing. So yeah, I can cut out alcohol. That's fine. But if I'm not actually working to better myself and understand myself, learn about myself, service, all the stuff that comes along with working a program, I'm going to stay that same bitter, old, angry, resentful person, even though I've cut out a lot of that alcohol. And that's a tough thing for somebody to deal with out there. And I don't think that, I think it goes back to, if you're in a relationship like that, how do you help somebody? And you really can't, right? I mean, we can't really help anybody except by loving on them, right? That's what we talk about a lot, I feel like.
That's it. Because
but how do you love somebody that you're pissed off at or who's being an asshole?
Well, first of all, you take back, in my opinion, what I try to do is take back the ability for them to piss me off. Because if they piss me off, it's by choice on my end.
True. Because
if I'm disturbed, there's something in me that needs to change, not in them. It's always me.
Yeah.
So I can change, I can submit, surrender, work, do some fourth step, whatever it is I need to do, which I would do with my sponsor, run it by my sponsor. Me and you've talked about this. I have a son that didn't go to college, and I was angry about it. And I couldn't figure out how to get rid of this anger because I masked it in being, he's wasting his opportunity. He was star student. All these things. And I could not get over this anger. I kept surrendering it, but I was still angry with him. And I talked to my sponsor about it. And I said, hey, I'm angry at my son about not going to school. And when we started digging down under that, really what it was I was angry because he was embarrassing me by not going to school. So it was back to
you. Yeah, that's crazy.
And once I surrendered that pride and that ego, the anger went away.
Well,
I'm no longer angry at him.
And here's something that I'm thinking about with that too. If you're in a relationship with somebody who is a dry drunk, or however you want to put it, what can you do? What can you do to change your situation? Just like you're saying, I can let somebody piss me off. Well, what am I doing as a person to deal with this myself? I'm putting off, well, they're not doing what they need to do. They're a dry drunk. They're angry. They're resentful. What is my part in that? And what can I do? Can I go to CR? Can I go to Al-Anon? Can I go get some help and learn and teach myself, do a step study myself? That I don't have to be an alcoholic or an addict to do that, and start learning some of these things and how to deal and how to cope with that. I really like that idea.
I believe that God is love. So if I am loving someone, I am sharing God with them. I don't have to say the word God. I don't have to preach to them. I don't have to share a particular message. What I have to do is love them. And if I inject love into a relationship, into a situation, then that relationship and situation is going to get better because I'm injecting God into that relationship or that situation. So the question isn't how can I fix them? It's how can I love them? And if you start from there and honestly want to love them, you will see how to do that. It will just appear out of nowhere, and you're like, wow. My wife, I'll give this quick example. I know we're rushed on. If you need,
we got two. No, it's cool. We got two questions left. We're good. We got about 5 minutes.
Okay. My wife, I always did nice things for her, made her coffee and all this stuff, and did extra stuff I really didn't have to do. But I was doing it from a place of, she's my wife. I need to do nice things for her, which is a good place to be. I wasn't angry. I wasn't, But one day I decided when I started learning all this, I said, I want to do that from love. So when I would make her a cup of coffee, I said, I'm making her a cup of coffee because I love her. I'm doing this because I love her. It wasn't a week later. She said, something's changed in you. I said, what? She said, well, I don't know, but there's something different, and my actions were exactly the same. As a matter of fact, I was doing less because I just didn't think I had to when I moved up to love,
Yeah.
And it was just, she was seeing that. So it's about this coming from a place of love changes things way beyond what we can do within our own intellect or in our own knowing.
Yeah, that's good. And I like that you said it. It didn't feel like I was doing anything because you're enjoying doing it. It's coming from a good place rather from a place of duty. Yeah, exactly. All right, cool, man. Let's move on. We got 2 left. And I think that definitely the second one, and I'm going to read it anyways, but I think it has a lot to do with a lot of stuff we talked about, but maybe we'll touch on it and then we'll close this thing out. This next one comes from Pam, though, and Pam says, is there any type of treatment program that's just as rewarding as an outpatient program without having to take time off of work? Also, what can I expect when I get into a particular type of program? I've decided I'm going to do it, but I also want to know how it might affect my regular world for that time period. It's a lot of couple questions in there. Well, let's start real quick with the first one. Is there a treatment program that's just as rewarding as outpatient without having to take time off of work? There's plenty of 12-step meetings all over the place. You can go to thatsoberguy.com. You can click on the help tab, and I put the meeting finders for AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, I think Refuge Recovery is on there. So you can find a meeting in your area right off the bat. Any thoughts, buddy?
Yeah. A lot of times you have clubhouses for AA meetings. If she's talking about alcohol, you have clubhouses. You have meetings are like churches. If you're looking for a church, you move into a community, you'll go to different churches and see where you fit. Well, meetings are a lot that way. No matter what kind of meeting you're talking about, you might have to go to several different meetings to find one that speaks to you, one where you fit in, just like, other community things. Now, I have found, especially when I travel, I like church meetings best because you seem to have healthier people at church meetings. So especially a lady looking for a meeting, I would start with any church if it was AA, if there was any church meetings in her area that meet at a church, because a lot of meetings do meet at a church. Those seem to be healthier meetings. Sometimes in clubhouses, they have good meetings, but sometimes they have some real unhealthy meetings too.
They're kind of cliquey. Could they be cliquey sometimes?
Well, sometimes, just different things. It just depends on when the meeting is, where it is, all those type things. But church meetings for me seem to do best. That's where I start.
She also said, what can I expect when I do get into a particular program? There's 2 things that are coming to mind for me. Expect to be loved. I know that I was loved on a lot and continue to do so at any meeting. And then I also can expect that I'm the worst person judging me. Nobody's judging me except me most of the time. I'm like my own worst enemy. I think, I'm going to be judged or whatever. It's usually up in my own head. I would just say expect to be loved and supported. I've met some of the most amazing people at meetings. So that's my take on that.
Also, a lot of times when you're in a recovery, she's going through an outpatient treatment. It sounds like, right?
Well, she said, is there a type of treatment program that's just as rewarding as an outpatient program without having to take time off of work?
Okay. In the outpatient program, there's probably, they have people come in and chair meetings that are from the community on most outpatient programs.
Yeah.
Maybe start where they go to meetings if she likes what she's hearing from them.
Yeah.
Because most of them use some local people that come in and volunteer. If that's the case with the program she's in, I would probably start there.
Okay. Got it. All right, let's move on. Last question here, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. This comes from Samantha. Samantha said, hey, Shane, kind of a strange situation right now with someone. He just started getting treatment for cocaine addiction. he mentioned he listened to the podcast. I thought I'd check it out too to see if it can help me and help him. I love him. I know his recovery is 100% the most important thing he needs to focus on. I was wondering if you had any specific podcast blogs or even personal advice on how I can help him through this, even though I'm feeling a little left out. I know he needs to focus on himself, but it's tough waiting here trying to be helpful and at the same time not overstep. So Samantha, thanks for the question. I think we've we've talked a little bit about this, but I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind, and I know I continue to struggle with this and people that I love trying to help, is that a lot of the time I just can't help them other than just try to support them and love them, which is hard sometimes too, because sometimes we're not happy with them.
Well, we all have addicts in our lives. We have people who are, most of us have at least someone either in our family or around us that is in active addiction.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with them? Well, we do some of the things. I would suggest she go to Al-Anon.
Yeah.
She'd learn some principles there that she may not know, like detaching with love, like not enabling behavior. Those are things that you learn in Al-Anon, how love does not always look like love. A lot of times love is doing nothing. Sometimes love is calling the police.
Yeah.
That sometimes is love. So that's the kind of things that you learn in Al-Anon. And I would suggest Al-Anon, a podcast. What's some podcasts that we could suggest? You said for her boyfriend, spouse, whatever, some podcasts he could listen to? Was that what she was?
She just said that he mentioned to her that he's been listening to Sober Guy, and so and that he could relate to it. So she jumped in. So are you saying different other podcasts?
Recovery podcasts that we like?
There's a ton of them out there. I mean, you got Recovery Revolution used to be Share, right? You got Recovery Elevator. You got the AA podcast, AA Recovered.
Yeah.
Sobercast, SoberPod.
SoberPod is good. There's a number of those out there now. The Boiled Owl is one of my favorite if you like AA kind of podcasts. Very good guys over in Greenville, North Carolina. Real good guys. But there's several podcasts. Sober Speak is a good that's AA based, good podcast.
Recovery Unscripted, that's another one.
The
Foundations.
The Way Out.
Yeah.
Charlie.
Home. Isn't there a Home or something?
I don't know that one.
The Way Out, though. Yeah, I've heard that.
Way Out's good.
Dopey. Dopey's awesome if you want some funny stories too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them. I don't know many Al-Anon, but I would check out an Al-Anon meeting, maybe 2 or 3, because you got to find one where you're fit.
Yeah.
Like all of these. But Al-Anon has a lot of good things to share with that. To help.
And that goes back to that same point, is what are you doing on your end to help deal with your loved one? We talk a lot about on here is you got to do the work. So I know it's tough sometimes kind of showing up, but if we're not really going to progress if we're not able to put the work in. I remember we had this conversation a long time ago about doing work, and I had a big sign that I just scratched out on a piece of paper. It just said "put in work" on my bench there, just to remind me, like, I have to do the work on the daily, and it's never going to look perfect. It's probably not going to look what I expect it to, but I just continuously I'm chipping away a little bit at a time, and that kind of helps keep me dialed in.
Agreed. We all have to do that, and that changes with time. What we're doing to be spiritually fit, it's always changing, and we always have to be open to that.
Yeah.
It's always changing. But the important thing is that we're waking up.
Yeah. Yep. Right on, man. I appreciate you, buddy. Anything you want to add before we wrap this up? Check out the Dow podcast. Check out Transitions Daily.
If those things, if you're so inclined, check them out.
Yeah. No, I said check them out, damn it. You will check them out now, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, my God.
Oh, man. No, good stuff, man. Thank you again, buddy. I appreciate you, man. Love you. We've just, it's a really special thing God's blessed us with, man. And I just appreciate the heck out of you, man.
Me too.
Guys, thanks for tuning in today. I hope, Buddy and I were able to share something, through our own experience or thoughts or whatever that might help you out there. Keep spreading the love, put in the work, do the thing. Check us out at thatsoberguy.com. You can connect with us on Instagram at realthatsoberguy, at Shane Raymer on Twitter. Peace, love, and respect, and keep it listening.
So keep my head on straight. I've been trying to keep my head on straight. You still say that I don't know anything about you. Oh, I don't know anything about you, but I know what you do in the back room. And you still say that I don't know anything about you. Oh, I don't know anything about you, but I know what you do in the back room.